Hoi! I'm BoomTheBombOmb.
This is Abe Weiss.
And we are back with more Phoenix Wright, Ace Attorney. Alright, so in the last episode, we went through our day one investigation. And now it is time to go to court. Let us begin right now with no more delays, except for the loading screen. There we go. Court is now in session for the trial of Miss Maya Fey. The prosecution is ready, Your Honor.
The defense is ready, Your Honor. Miles Edgeworth. I better not show any signs of weakness today, or he'll be on me in an instant.
Mr. Edgeworth, please give the court your opening statement. Thank you, Your Honor. The defendant, Miss Maya Fey, was at the scene of the crime. The prosecution has evidence she committed this murder. And we have a witness who saw her do it. The prosecution sees no reason to doubt the facts of this case, Your Honor. I see. Thank you, Mr. Edgeworth. Let's begin, then. If we may call our first witness, Your Honor. The prosecution calls the chief officer at the scene, Detective Gumshoe. Witness, please state your name and profession to the court.
Sir, my name's Dick Gumshoe, sir. I'm the detective in charge of homicides down at the precinct, sir.
Detective Gumshoe, please describe for us the details of this murder.
Very well, sir. Let me use this floor map of the office to explain. The body was found by this window here. And the cause of death? Loss of blood due to being struck by a blunt object, sir. The murder weapon was a statue of the thinker found next to the body, sir. It was heavy enough to be a deadly weapon, even in a girl's hands, sir.
Of course, this game came out in the 1990s, I think. So of course they're making all these assumptions, as it were, these bias assumptions, saying oh, even a girl could use this thing to kill someone because they're saying they're not as strong.
I think that's more the characterization of the character rather than anything else. I think they would have done that just, as much today as in the 1990s, frankly.
Perhaps.
Because I think in the 1990s there was already this sensibility that that's not, a basis for testimony. But look, this is fiction, and they're trying to create a certain persona here.
Right, and not to mention also, I don't know if you've noticed, but you know how our justice system, it's innocent until proven guilty, right? So you may have noticed from the last case and this one as well, it's guilty until proven innocent.
That seems
in this game.
That seems to be the orientation, at least, of the way this is being presented. But I mentioned this before, but I still can't get over the halo over the judge's head.
Yeah, you mentioned this in the very first episode that we recorded 4 years ago. Yeah, no, it definitely looks like the scale's base is a halo. Anyway, the court accepts the statue into evidence.
They're still calling it a statue.
Floor plans added to the court record. The murder scene, the Fay & Co. law offices. Now, detective.
Yes, sir?
You immediately arrested Miss Maya Fey, who was found at the scene, correct? Can you tell me why?
Yes, sir. I had hard evidence she did it, sir.
Detective Gumshoe. Please testify to the court about this hard evidence.
You don't see judges interjecting themselves like that in a trial. Very unusual.
I think you also mentioned this in one of the episodes we recorded 4 years ago, actually.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Maya Fey's arrest.
As soon as the phone call came in, I rushed to the scene.
Sorry, guys, my dog just shook there, by the way. That's what that sound was.
There were 2 people there already. The defendant, Ms. Maya Fey, and the lawyer, Mr. Phoenix Wright. I immediately arrested Ms. Maya Fey. Why? We had a witness account describing her. The witness saw Miss Maya Fey at the very moment of the murder.
The very moment, you say. Very well. Mr. Wright, you may begin your cross-examination.
Yes, Your Honor. Cross-examine what? I couldn't see a single contradiction in that testimony. Whoosh. Hey, Maya just threw something at me. What's this?
So this is a note. I'll read in Maya's voice. When my sister couldn't find any contradictions in a witness's testimony, she would bluff it and press the witness on every detail. The witness always slips up and says something wrong. It worked lots of times.
Hey, I should have expected Maya would know some of her sister's tricks. All right, let's give this a try.
All right, so this is introducing us to another mechanic in the game here. So we don't only just find contradictions in testimony, we also press witnesses to get more out of them. So anyway, something the matter?
No, Your Honor, I'd like to begin my cross-examination.
All right, so let's go over the testimony once more. You don't have to do the voice or anything, because it's just the repeated text. But and then we're gonna decide after like what statements might be most useful to press. Now, a lot of times when people play through this game, they will press everything because you can get some really funny statements from that. But we're gonna try to go through this as if, you know, we should only stick to like what's relevant as best we can. I think that'd be more fun for you.
Okay, so he's recollecting now in advance of the cross-examination. This is in his mind what he's.
No, this is the cross-examination right now.
But there's been no question yet.
Well,
he's just, you know, speaking up. That doesn't happen.
I know it doesn't, but there has to be a way for us to control something around here, and if we were just presented with a few questions that were pre-written, it wouldn't really be that much fun.
Okay.
Just from a game design standpoint. So, as soon as the phone call came in, I rushed to the scene. There were 2 people there already. Defendant Miss Maya Fey and the lawyer Mr. Phoenix Wright. I immediately arrested Miss Maya Fey. Why? Why we had a witness describing her. The witness saw Maya Fey at the very moment of the murder. So I'd say, what do you think? What do you think which statement I just read would be most useful to press right now?
The witness statement.
Which one? This one or this
witness,
one?
No,
This one?
the witness saw Miss Maya Fey at the very moment of the murder.
I agree. I'd say that's good intuition. Let's see if we're right.
Hold on, just 1 second. Yeah. If I heard correctly, you said you arrested her because you had hard evidence she did it, correct? Huh? Did I say that? Me? I heard you.
You did say it. You said it.
Exactly. What about this suspicious woman in pink's claim was hard evidence? What? Miss May isn't suspicious, and she sure isn't pink, pal. Well, I guess she is pink.
That's enough, Detective Gumshoe. Do you have any more solid proof other than her claims, Detective?
I guess pressing can have its advantages. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, I got the order of things mixed up in my testimony, Your Honor. Sir, there was something I should have told you about first, Your Honor.
Very well, Detective. Let's hear your testimony again. Hard evidence. All right.
After securing the suspect, I examined the scene of the crime with my own eyes. I found a memo written on a piece of paper next to the victim's body. On it, the word Maya was clearly written in blood. Lab test results showed that the blood was the victim's. Also, there was blood found on the victim's finger. Before she died, the victim wrote the killer's name.
Classic cliche, obviously.
Obviously. How do you like that? That's my hard evidence.
Before we begin cross-examination, I have a question for you, Detective.
Your Honor?
Why didn't you testify about this vital piece of evidence the first time?
I know. I'm real embarrassed. I forgot about it, Your Honor. Sir?
Try to be more careful. Very well. The defense may begin its cross-examination. Alright, so after securing the suspect, examined the scene of the crime, found a memo written on a piece of paper next to the victim's body. Word Maya was written clearly in blood. Lab test results show that the blood was the victim's. So there was blood found on the victim's finger. I wrote the killer's name. Okay, so let's take a look at the court record here, just to see if there's any contradictions that we can find already. Time of death, blunt force trauma, we know that. Holds a conversation between Chief and Maya, that's not going to be relevant to this right now. Remains of a glass light stand, broken beyond all recognition. There's the murder weapon. The wiretap we found, and then... So... Yeah, I mean, that looks like it says Maya, alright.
Yes, but the obvious problem here is that the detective made an assumption. He assumed that what the victim wrote was the killer's name.
Right.
That assumption is just that, an assumption. There's nothing about what was written that necessarily means it was the name of the killer. Maybe it could have meant that the killer thought that he was or she was killing Maya rather than the person who was actually murdered.
Right, Mia. And Mia was murdered. And so, I mean, that is one conclusion we can make, sure. But I think maybe we should press him, perhaps?
Yep.
And see what he has to say.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, see what he has to say about this particular statement right here.
Right. Detective Gumshoe, do you get a lot of cases where the victim actually writes the killer's name? Sure, it happens all the time in books and the movies. This isn't a movie, detective. Oof. Let's talk about reality, shall we? I guess I haven't heard of many cases, no. Don't you find it a little odd that the victim would write down a name? Especially the name of her own sister? Yeah, actually, you got a point, pal.
Stop right there. The witness's opinion on the matter is irrelevant. The facts are clear. The victim wrote down the name of the accused.
That's not a fact. That's actually, she wrote down the name. But to say that it was the name of the accused, that's not a fact. That's an opinion. That's an assumption.
Well, intended as the accused, yes or no, it's still Maya either way.
Right.
That is fact.
The fact is, all we know is that the victim wrote the name Maya. What it means is an opinion.
No, that I wasn't just that I wasn't saying.
Mm-hmm.
Because you're right about that. I was just saying that the two names are in fact the same. That's all I was saying.
Mm-hmm.
I think it could be taken either way, but
Okay.
I think you're actually more correct here.
Mm-hmm.
All right. The victim told us the name of her killer. Order.
That didn't go so well. That's right. What he said. That's his whole testimony. Okay. There has to be a contradiction in there somewhere. Let's find it.
All right, so the game is throwing us a little bit of a bone here. We might not even have to press for this.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's a direct contradiction hidden in there somewhere, so let's go over it again. Okay, after securing the suspect, I examined the scene of the crime with my own eyes. Found a memo on a piece of paper next to the victim's body. Written clearly in blood. Lab test results showed that the blood was the victim's. There was blood found on the victim's finger.
So the victim. So that meant that the victim was bleeding,
Yes.
and that meant that she had already been struck,
Yeah.
and that
Oh,
meant...
wait! You're right! I think I know where you're going with this, but let's finish this and hear this. I want to hear you say this.
Okay, so the question is, was there was enough blood
Yes.
to write the name?
Presumably.
The question is, by the time there was enough blood to write the name, would she have still had sufficient consciousness in order to be able to write a name?
Right. Well, that's easily answered because we have an autopsy report. Death was instantaneous. In other words, she would not have had even a moment to write the name.
Correct.
All right, so now here's the thing. We can't just present evidence on any statement. That would be way too easy. They want us to find the contradiction specifically, so we have to present it on a specific statement. So if we go through this, this is probably the most likely one.
Right. Before she died, the victim wrote the killer's name. How could she have written the killer's name in blood when when death was instantaneous?
Exactly. So let's present this. All right.
Mm-hmm. Detective Gumshoe, there's one thing I want you to clarify for me here. You say that the victim, Mia Fey, wrote this note. That she was accusing the defendant, Mia Fey. That's really what you're saying? What? This isn't one of those lawyer tricks now, is it? Of course she wrote it. Who else could have? You have it backwards, detective. Backwards? The victim is the only person who absolutely could not have written it. This is a report from your department, Detective. Immediate death due to a blow from a blunt object. She died immediately. But nobody your way out of this one, Detective.
Order! Order! The defense has a point. Someone who died immediately wouldn't have had time to write anything down. Mr. Wright, I beg your pardon, but when exactly did you obtain that autopsy report?
Well, when?
Well, let's go over what happened. It's been a few weeks since we've recorded the last set of episodes, so my father here, he does not fully remember what occurred. I gave him the rundown earlier, but essentially, okay, so the day of the murder, it happened at night, right?
Right.
And then the next day when we were investigating after being questioned, because we were also at the scene of the crime, was when we got the autopsy report. Okay. So it was the day after the murder, technically. Now, unless, of course, it was like the AM hours for the murder, and I don't recall whether it was or not, so I'd just say it's likely the day after.
That would be pretty fast for an autopsy report. You would expect they would do toxicology tests and all sorts of stuff.
Right.
That would take longer than 12 hours or anything like that.
Especially the time that this game came out.
But this is fiction, so, you know...
Right.
Not unreasonable, I suppose. It was the day after the murder.
The prosecution's point being... that autopsy report is outdated, Your Honor.
What?
A second autopsy was performed yesterday at my request. Death was almost immediate due to a blow from a blunt object. But there is a possibility the victim lived for several minutes after the blow. I received these results this morning.
No way!
Your Honor, it's quite easy to imagine that the victim did have time to write Maya. That is all. I see.
Damn you, Edgeworth. You should have known you'd have something up your sleeve.
Why, Mr. Wright? You look shocked. Something you want to say? You're a sham! I'm the sham! The detective is... We're all shams here!
You know, this is all very suspicious. First of all, if the prosecution obtained an autopsy report, they have a duty to provide that to the defendant. The fact that they didn't makes it suspicious. That's number one. So it's not that Edgeworth. It's not that Edgeworth is a sham, but it does raise a suspicion as to if he has some sort of ulterior motive here.
You would think that, but let me tell you a little something about the series. This kind of thing,
yes,
evidence is presented to us as the trial goes on a lot of the time.
Mm-hmm.
So Edgeworth here, he's not suspicious in the context of the story, but if this was being held to a real life standard, you would be most certainly correct.
Mm-hmm. And no defense attorney, even a bad defense attorney, is going to say in open court that he's a sham.
True.
So that leaves the detectives a sham.
So the detective is a sham? Alright.
Detective Gumshoe, you're a sham. How could you give me a faulty report? Huh? I thought...
Detective Gumshoe. I am disappointed in you, handing him the wrong report like that. Wow! Edgeworth just throwing Gumshoe under the bus. Even though in the game's context, detectives and prosecutors are kind of on the same team.
Yeah.
So this is just like, wow.
Well, you have to remember that when you have attorneys in a trial like this, there's a lot of acting going on here as well. So I think this is a false presentation of disappointment. I think he's trying to, appear above reproach to the court.
Maybe.
I'm sorry, sir.
You are at fault, detective. This isn't going to look good on your evaluation next month.
What? But
Your Honor, I submit this report to the court. Understood. The court accepts the evidence. Autopsy report updated in the court record. Died from a blow by a blunt object. May have lived for a few minutes after being hit.
I'm still suspicious about this autopsy report. The updated one, that is.
Yeah.
Yeah. And, it would also you would not see a prosecutor. Again, this is the fiction for effect aspect of this. You would not see a prosecutor in open court admonishing a detective like that and suggesting that that's going to look bad on a review. First of all, prosecutors are not conducting reviews of detectives.
Right.
So
in this game, let me tell you, so the hierarchy of like the precinct, the police, and detectives and prosecutors in this game are basically like, they have a lot of power. And that includes over the police force, because they're the ones that are directing the investigations. They're the ones that are, in charge of all of this in order to gather evidence in the game. So Edgeworth is kind of like a boss to Gumshoe.
And that really makes no sense, because in hierarchies, the way everything is set up in this country, the police officers are part of the administration of government, the executive portion of government, whereas prosecutors are under a district attorney who's always elected. So these really are separate branches of government, and police do the investigation, prosecutors do the charging. And so, and oftentimes you'll read where police present evidence to the prosecutor, and the prosecutor declines to bring charges because there's insufficient evidence. So the prosecutors have that discretion, not the police, and it defies credulity that a prosecutor would say in a court, this is going to look bad on your review next month. It just doesn't happen.
No, I'm sure it doesn't. It's just, that's the hierarchy in the game.
Okay.
Just to give you a better understanding of that world, for the sake of context. And we will see how suspicious this autopsy report actually is in the next episode. Maybe. I don't remember what happens. So we will see you all next time. This has been BoomTheBombOmb.
And this is Abe Weiss.
Boy!